Amanda, welcome to Speaker Spotlight.
Hello, lovely to meet you.
It's so lovely to speak to you and meet you and talk to you about your work that you do in the world of dyslexia and neurodiversity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've been doing this, it's been my passion for the last, 10, 11 years. Dyslexia and dyscalculia, I'm sort of working in both areas, and I love it.
And you can really see that because you come alive in your conversation when you talk about it, especially when it comes to dyscalculia, because this year we've got the dyslexia show
Mm.
and the dyscalculia show, which is just amazing.
Yeah, I'm so excited because that's what we've wanted to do for the last few years is really bring the dyscalculia to everybody's attention. And yes, no, it is my passion. Having grown up finding maths quite tricky and not really enjoying it, I absolutely love helping people to understand it more, assessing people so they can get the help they need. So yes, no, you're right. I really do love talking about it.
But it is, this show gives you the opportunity to wave that flag, and especially when we hear dyslexia, we forget about all the other neurodiverse conditions and that
Yeah.
umbrella. Like when I'm in the interview, when I'm talking about it, I like to use the term neurodiversity because there's so many different branches that come with that. But in particular with dyscalculia, it's so under researched, and as an assessor, it's a crucial role picking this up, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And actually, there is a lot of research happening. It's just that there's so much happening, but it started more recently than with dyslexia. So it's a really exciting field to be interested in because there's lots of changes and we're finding out lots of new things. But obviously, as an assessor, then it's really important to keep on top of exactly what the issues may be, what the latest research is, but also just working alongside the children and helping them to understand what's going on for them. And that can be dyscalculia. It can be maths anxiety, which is what I'll be talking about. The two things can happen at the same time, or they can cause similar issues, or at least they look similar, perhaps, when they're in the classroom.
Absolutely, because I've spoken to Kat Easel in the past, and she's
Mm,
obviously dyslexic, Dyscalculia Network, and
yeah.
she spoke about that anxiety that comes in. Sometimes they can mirror each other, but they can be completely different. But I think the longer as
Mm.
well it goes undetected, like any mental health, it can get worse
Yes.
and worse, and that anxiety builds up and builds up.
Yeah, the Dyscalculia Network are doing an amazing job, and I've been so proud to be a part of that. So a very small part of that over the last few years, but they've done a brilliant job to bring it to light, really. And yeah, as you say, we've had interestingly quite a few adults come to us because they've worried about maths for years. They found it hard for years. And actually, they're finally realizing that maybe it wasn't just that, they weren't clever enough to do maths, which is what I think perhaps some of us think when we're at school, but actually that they maybe had something causing that concern. But also, I've spoken to adults, my goodness, who have worked in with statistics for years. And actually, it turns out really it was to do with the anxiety that was building up, and it can happen very quickly for people with maths, and it can impact the maths, which is even worse. You're anxious about it anyway, and then that anxiety can make maths harder for you, and so it's a real vicious circle. So yeah, it's really important to unpick all of that when we're doing an assessment, and that's what I love about it. I sort of say I'm a bit like a detective. I'm going to try and get down to the root of what's causing it so that I can provide the best recommendations for people, really.
I love that. And as well, I think I'm really glad you touched on adults in particular, because
Mm,
now there's so much more people talking about dyscalculia, and that's the beauty of the show. But adults
yeah.
are actually recognizing, oh, potentially maybe that's what I've struggled with all my life. And in
Yeah.
particular, it might be that there might be parents or working with young people who are dyscalculic. They think, oh, actually, I'm like that, and maybe the penny drops. Then you think maybe that's where it's come from.
Yes, absolutely. And I've had several parents say that to me, often jokingly, but I always think there's a little kernel of truth in there that actually that's something that they've thought about. And of course, things like time and money continue to be really hard for an adult with dyscalculia. And so if we can find the adults as well as the students who we can help to understand why it is something's being so hard for them all their lives. I just think, isn't that a wonderful thing to be able to do? Just to help people to understand themselves, really.
And you're giving people that opportunity. It's such
Mm.
an amazing gift that you do,
Yeah.
and it's, yeah, it is honestly, and it's life changing what
Yeah.
you do, Amanda.
It's a real privilege. It's a real privilege, I have to say. And I'm so lucky that this is an area that I've grown to become really passionate about, because there aren't an awful lot of us. I'm hoping that shows like this will encourage more teachers as well to investigate and perhaps even to train as well. But it's a real privilege because I can help people that a lot of people can't. So
Yeah, you're a fairy godmother for Dyscalculia. And yeah,
yes, I think it's funny. People talk about retiring, and I'm like, no, I really don't think I could never not do this. I think I'll just be carrying on.
and I've got to ask you, Amanda, when it comes to whether you're a parent or a teacher or working with someone, you might have an inclination that they may be dyscalculic, or that maths anxiety might be something a bit more, or because we all make mistakes in maths. Whether you're neurodiverse or not,
Absolutely. Yep.
everyone can make mistakes. But when you
Mm,
think, oh, maybe there's something more to this, are there any
mm.
particular signs that people should be looking out for, and what can we do from there?
Yeah. Okay. So really, the fundamentals of dyscalculia is that for some reason, it's really hard for the brain to judge quantities, actually. It doesn't really even start with numbers a lot of the time. To judge quantities, to look at two bowls of apples and know which bowl has more apples in it. So, of course, for those people, if they can't judge which number of apples is larger, then assigning a quantity to a number, really actually understanding what a number is and what it means is really difficult. And I often talk about maths being like a foreign language, like really that we haven't learned at all. So I often put a screen up of sums that have been translated to a Japanese script, because it is like that for people with dyscalculia. And that in itself might already ring a bell. I often have students come to me and say, "Oh, it's just like they're speaking Spanish in class." And so that's probably the first thing. But I would say, as the children are going through primary and then into secondary, if they're struggling with remembering number facts, for example, so which numbers add up to make 10, doubles and halves, times tables, obviously, and of course that can be caused by a lot of things. But if with lots of extra help and maybe lots of visuals and fun activities, if then it's still not really sticking, that might be a cause for concern. And you'll probably see some other things. There'll be a lot of counting on fingers. And actually, for some children, they may not remember that they have 5 fingers on one hand. So that's a form of subitizing, which is a word that's come into certainly into education more recently. But I suspect some parents are out there thinking, what is subitizing? And that's really the ability when if I dropped 4 counters in front of you now, you could probably look at that and say there's 4 without having to count. Because somebody with dyscalculia isn't able to judge quantities, they're not able to do that. So they may even see 2 counters and just want to double check that there's 2 there. So there's a lot going on, and it's a lot of really foundational stuff that makes other maths much harder to do. And really, it's we talk about a lack of intuition with number, and I think that's it's really hard to define. But it's those children that maybe come up with an answer for some, and it's way off. Perhaps it's really left field according to the numbers in the sum, but that child won't recognise that because, of course, to them they're pretty much arbitrary symbols. And I have to say, I do really admire anyone with dyscalculia or maths anxiety when maths has been so hard, but they've stuck at it. And, I'm assessing people at the age of 16, and they've stuck all the way through school with doing amazing finger counting as much as they can. And I just think it's remarkable how much people are able to do. But those are the sorts of signs that you're looking for. And things like not really being able to do column addition or subtraction because it's too hard to remember. And of course, that can be for other neurodiverse reasons. but it can also be because of dyscalculia and the way that it impacts the memory. So yeah, there's certainly, I would say, the biggest thing that teachers come to me with is they just can't remember their number bonds. It's actually probably more that than just times tables. It's, well, they don't know the numbers to 10 and they can't remember what double six is. And I don't understand because we've given them lots of support in the past. So yeah, that's those are probably the main signs to look out for, I would say.
And it's really invaluable for teachers and educators to know this, because again, because it's a memory association, you think, oh, it's probably something else. It's not to do with
Yeah,
that, but actually it's a
yeah,
massive, like you say, it's a massive indicator of
yeah.
dyscalculia. Amanda, you're just absolutely fantastic. Where can people, because the show's not till March, where can people find you in the meantime?
Okay, so I have my own website. So I'm amanda-keen.com, but also I'm a big part of the Dyscalculia Network. And that's a great place for people to go if they want any help or resources. Maths Anxiety Trust is also available for people to reach out to if their child or if themselves they have some maths anxiety. And we all really understand what people are going through. And I think that's really important to know because it's quite nerve-wracking. Maths can be nerve-wracking anyway, and then to talk to somebody about how hard it is can be really tricky. Well, we really, really understand, and in fact, it's our passion to help you. So, please do reach out if you want to.